Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the DS Show. I'm joined by a good friend who I connected with recently at the Silicon Valley Anaplan Connect conference. He is the Senior Vice President of Finance and Workforce Applications. Please welcome to the show, Neil Thomas.
All right. Thank you, Dash. Delighted to be with you and chat to you here as well as we also met in London recently as well because you're on
We
international jet
did.
set. Yeah. So great to be
That's right.
connected with you today.
That's right. Now, we got to chat a little bit over dinner, and we did have a brief conversation in London. So I've got to know you quite a bit more than of course, when we first met. But for the audience who may not know you, please go ahead and you could give us a quick introduction.
Yeah. So it's a long story, and as you know, Dinesh. So I work at Anaplan today. Delighted to be leading our workforce and finance applications efforts, and we'll talk, I'm sure, about that a little bit later. From a kind of historic perspective, career-wise, how did I end up here? I'm an accountant by profession, so I spent my first 10 years in finance, worked in essentially cost accounting, management accounting, FP&A as it is today, for companies like Johnson and Johnson. Kind of cut my teeth there. I ran FP&A for a very large retailer across Europe for a little while, and then I got my startup thing, and that's one of my phases of my career where I was head of finance in a startup, which was about £2 or £3 million a year. You might have caught my accent in the outside world. So this was in England, and we grew that company to about £50 million a year. And as everybody knows, if you go through one of those kind of rocket ship journeys, it's super exciting. And that's how I caught my startup bug. Much more fun than Johnson & Johnson. It's a very big company. Anyway, then what happened is, and this is a longer story, is about 1993-4. We were going through a whole system review. So new ERP systems, new MRP systems. The company was obviously growing. And we started looking at the first beginnings of enterprise performance management or corporate performance management or business performance management. So FP&A tools, essentially. And it just so happens that I got some marketing correspondence. Those were in the days of paper from a company called Adaytum. And Adaytum is one of the founding fathers of CPM. I'm still a CPM guy, along with Hyperion and Comshare, who are both American companies. Hadn't really heard of them at the time. Adaytum said, hey, we'd like to come and meet you. So why not? So I was met by their salesperson, who was Guy Haddleton. And Guy Haddleton was the founder of Adaytum. He was also joint founder of Anaplan hundreds of years later. So Guy and I got in a room, this is 94, 5, something like that, and started looking at Adaytum. Now, if you can, for everybody's too young in this audience, including you, Dinesh, but that was the DOS version of Adaytum. So remember those kind of green texts that come across, and it clever, build a model. But I was an Excel guy, right? So I'm like, this is ridiculous. This green screen thing, that's why we're upgrading all our other systems. But we got on really, really well, really connected as two human beings, very different characters, but definitely connected. And so over the course of the next 12 to 18 months, kind of stayed in touch, and I bumped into Guy and a few of the other folks at an exhibition. And at that time, they were now showing the Windows version. And the light goes on, right? When you see it much more visual, much more modern in those days, like, wow, this is a cool tool. So I basically, to really cut this short, over a couple of glasses of wine, joined Adaytum back in 1995 as essentially the second salesperson / CFO, do the accounts. Guy was basically, hey, you're a finance guy, but you can sell things and you can present things. So why don't you do a bit of both for a while, because we're a small company. And within about 3 to 6 months from there, got on a plane, moved to Minneapolis, which is a little cold. I didn't really quite appreciate how cold that was, and basically moved to the US in late 95. And there were 4 of us. We're like the Beatles of FP&A, we used to call ourselves, that landed in Minneapolis and helped build up the Adaytum business, which many years later was sold to Cognos, and it's now part of the IBM scene. for a nice sum. And really enjoyed that ride. Got to run Asia Pacific for a while, so lived in Australia and Sydney on the harbour. That was really nice. Ended up back in Minneapolis when we got acquired, running worldwide channels for Adaytum. And great growth story, very successful startup. Had lots and lots of fun. Bumped into a whole bunch of people, including my current boss, Adam Thier, Anaplan. He joined Adaytum in about 98, 99, and made lots of great friends. Became an American. What else? All that adventure stuff. Anyway, after that, got acquired. Definitely was a startup guy, right? So I'm working for this big $1 billion software company called Cognos. Liked Cognos, but a bit less fun than growing a business really fast. And I joined Adaptive. So when in those days it was adaptive planning. This was in 2005. So I met folks like Rob Hull, who was the founder, CFO of Adaptive, fabulous person, and got hired there. And I ran worldwide sales for Adaptive for about 8-9 years, something like that. From about, we had 5 paying customers when I started, had about 3,600 when I left. And everyone knows that ended with the Workday acquisition. So that happened a little bit after I left. And for some reason at that time when I left, it was like, I think I'll do something else, right? All this FP&A stuff, all selling to finance, whether it's consolidations, planning, maybe I'll do a few other things. And so I actually did some other things in various different markets, e-commerce, a little bit of low code, no code, mobile development, but was always drawn back to the Office of Finance. That's my heritage. So for a short period of time, I ran worldwide sales and marketing at Venna Solutions. And then started my first dream, which was, hey, I'm going to start from nothing, my own company. Didn't quite do that in that sense. Met Guy Haddleton at that time had founded at Anaplan. Anaplan had gone public. Might had a few dollars in his pocket as a result. And we worked on a startup together with a few other folks of how can we make planning much more accessible. So same multidimensional modeling, same helping our audience, but how do we make it the friction points are really low because people still go back to Excel. They're still in Excel for things that I fundamentally believe they should be using the right tools for. But there is a barrier to learning. There's a barrier of speed. So how do we make that truly, an app for planning? And we messed around with that for a couple of years. Unfortunately, it was going quite well, but not well enough. And we couldn't secure the funding. And Guy was involved. Rob Hull from Adaptive helped us a little bit. That was a really fun experience, but unfortunately didn't end with a wow, this has gone to market, right? It was, wow, we a long way to go. And we decided, let's not go any further. And as that happened, I joined a company called Prevedere, which is now part of Board in the FP&A space. Prevedere was a predictive analytics AI-driven company. And that's where I started getting into AI, right? Like what's the real capability of predictive AI and generative AI and reporting? And for me, it was a year until we got acquired. It really opened my eyes to what can AI do for the Office of Finance. And so as that acquisition was beginning to happen, Adam Thier, who I mentioned, who is our Chief Product and Technology Officer here at Anaplan, called me up and said, hey, Anaplan, we're executing on a vision of we have the world's greatest modeling engine, and everybody knows that, right? It's multidimensional. You switch it on, you can build anything you want in any area. It doesn't matter if it's finance, supply chain, workforce, any vertical, any business. If you want to model and plan and play around and do stuff with numbers and lots of them, Anaplan's the tool, and it absolutely is. It's the best tool out there by far. But again, back to that sort of make it easy, there's a learning curve, and you go through a master Anaplanner course and things like that. So our vision here now is to take all of that power. We're not going to compromise any of that. If you want to take a blank screen and go build something, go for it. That's absolutely correct. But after thousands of implementations, lots of businesses are very consistent. You have a P&L, you have a cash, you have a balance sheet, et cetera, et cetera. You have people. So we plan for headcount. We have open positions. Okay, so we do some recruiting. We plan for our workforce. We plan for contracts, blah, 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 right? So there's a lot of consistency. So now what we are doing is, alongside that platform, which is being tidied up in various different ways. And what I mean by that is make it bigger, stronger, more resilient. There's never going to be less data, right? So make it really, really modern age versus 7-10 years ago. Really take advantage of all the latest technology, including AI readiness. We're layering on applications on top now. So I look after, again, the workforce one. So how does an HR team plan for how many people do I need? What roles are they going to be in? How do I fill those roles? What skills do I need? And we call that our operational workforce planning application. And we have a few more coming soon. And then on the FP&A side of the house, I look after the integrated financial planning application and a few others, including things like profitability allocations, which you just simply turn on. I'm making this probably sound a little too easy, but you turn it on and you start putting your data in, and you're basically up and running with all the power of Anaplan. Very, very quick time to value, accelerated learning curve. It's a really different way of implementing, because, of course, I could implement today and then I see my gaps. Where is my unique process that really adds value to my planning cycle, and then layer on in, rather than design everything on a whiteboard and maybe take a lot longer and maybe over-engineer for those common areas like people planning again. There's only so much you need to know about people when you plan for them. But hey, modeling revenue, that's a real value add for many, many businesses. So let's spend our Anaplan brain power and time and energy on optimizing for that. And all of the more straightforward areas of the business, let's just use the out-of-the-box application. And if we need to tweak them and configure them a little bit differently, we support doing that. So that's the integrated financial planning application. And then I also look after our financial consolidation application. So that's obviously, hey, all the planning in the world, you better get some actuals in there. So if you're a complicated business, many subsidiaries, diverse ownership, that type of stuff, we have an application for that, Anaplan Consolidations, which is a very, very cool application. We acquired it, give or take, a year or so ago, and we've been bringing it into the same framework, the same platform, the same UI, leverage the same AI, and that's almost done now. It's amazing how long everything takes, but that's almost done, and it's really, really resonating with the people that we show it to, because it's truly a new way of doing consolidations. You don't do the financial process differently, but the UI and it's built for a finance person. It's not built for an IT person. It's a real modern application in the space. So we're still cutting our teeth on it a little bit, but it's a really, really nice tool. And if you are needing consolidations, it's a really, really good solution to consider. And obviously very, very complementary to the FP&A world that we look after from a planning perspective. So that's my journey. So 10 years in practice, whole bunch of selling, obviously mainly startups, but Anaplan, I feel like I'm a startup in my application world in a very, very large company. And it's a very, very exciting journey, because it's both applications on a platform that's been engineered to support that, on a platform that's been engineered now to really support what's happening in AI. And one thing I learned, particularly at Prevedere, was, wow, AI is really, really expensive to just experiment with, to leverage. Every time you ask it a question, it costs you some money. So when you work with a company like Anaplan, which is obviously a $1 billion company, extremely well run, fortunately, we have a little bit of money in the bank, we can really, really invest in this area. And the development path and acceleration is something to be genuinely excited about, right? So when you're in software, it's ever changing. That continues to speed up. But in the modern world now, AI is where it's at, and it's fascinating to watch it at the platform level, and then in the applications, and then around all of the applications and platform really coming to life. It's fun. I actually just stepped out of a demo to a very, very large manufacturer, and they're like, I can't believe you just did that. And we didn't do anything. We just asked the machine to do it, and it just went off and did it for you. And they're like, this is so exciting. And they've been a long time Anaplan customer. So they're seeing this sort of AI generation really come to life over the last year or so. And now, from demos to reality in the product and the platform itself. So it's good stuff. Yeah. So that's me.
All right. Well, Well, wonderful. I think that really captures the breadth of your experience and your journey. Um, Before we kind of dive into some of the EPM and Anaplan stuff, I think I want to focus a little bit on Neil the person,
Mhm.
because you've had quite the journey and so many experiences. One thing I'm curious about, because you mentioned you're an accountant, or that was kind of your starting point, your background. What 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 about it kind of made you want to get into sales, or kind of like the sales role, right? Do you think it was just kind of your natural personality? Did you find like a mentor that sort of was like, hey, and I know you shared the story with Guy.
Yep.
Um, what was kind of that first foray?
Yeah. So I'm a little bit money motivated, Dinesh.
Like,
Right.
fair.
So in my finance days, and I really liked being in finance. I really liked the fact that once you got to the near to the top of finance, you're involved in everything, right? You've got to run the
Mhm,
numbers for everything. What have we done? What are we going to do? How do we plan? And you really have to learn the business to be a really good finance partner to the business. So I loved that. What I didn't like so much was the routine, so month to month to month to month.
mhm,
And
mhm,
if nothing's moved, and that's kind of why I didn't like working, and that's too strong. It's kind of why I found a large company, you're literally month to month routine and
mhm,
nothing really moves. Finance in a startup was way more fun, right? So we acquired a company, we built a
mhm.
new factory, we were always refinancing, loads of different things happening. I loved that. I loved that.
Yeah.
And that aspect of having to really know the business really well when you go in and ask for more money from the bank and those sorts of things. But when the one day, and I remember the gentleman's name. He's probably in England. This probably doesn't matter. But Nick was our best
Mhm,
seller, and Nick, I was the guy that signed his check for his year-end commission. And
mm,
I knew how much I've already got paid because obviously I did all the personnel budgeting. But it was £227,000. And this was in 1980, no,
oh, wow.
1992-ish, right? 93. It's probably worth about £5 million by now with inflation.
Yeah,
Not,
yeah.
not quite that much. But I looked at that and, I thought to myself, you know what? That's a little bit more than I get paid, in a year, let alone maybe 2 years,
Mhm,
maybe even 3 at that point.
mhm,
Um, what the hell am I doing?
mhm.
Nick, I'm just as clever as Nick. I'm just as good looking. I have personality. All he does is sell technology. I could do that. We sold hardware.
Uh-huh,
And so it really made me think, right? In the time that I have on this earth, this might get a bit deep.
mhm,
What do I want to do? Well, I want to travel. I want to explore. I want to do lots of different things. Well, what do you need to
mhm,
do that? Well, you either do it, with a backpack, or you have a little bit of money in the bank, right? And you have some
mhm.
adventure. And so that's a little bit easier, right? You
Right.
get a better hotel room and that sort of thing. So I really liked finance, but I wasn't married to the purity of debits and credits and balancing my balance sheet.
Mhm,
Um, I wanted to do things, and part of my job there was to go and work with customers. So
mhm.
I looked after all our maintenance business. So I actually had a P&L, which was I had a few reps and we went out and we were basically responsible for selling maintenance. Don't ask me how I ended up under finance, but basically it's a routine, right? It's a renewal, it's a management routine.
Mhm,
And
mhm,
so I would stand in front of Barclays Bank and NatWest Bank and basically ask them for their renewal and upsell them. And my experience with Nick getting paid a lot of money, who's literally in the same room for the work that, hey, I did most of that work. I put together the quote, I did all the price. What am I doing here? I might as well just do it myself. And when I met Guy, Guy was the one who literally said to me, you probably could be able to sell something. Now, do you want to do that? It's a different career. Obviously, it can be higher risk, higher reward, but higher risk.
mhm.
Or do you want to be in finance? And when I moved to Adaytum, I had a few other choices, right? I could have moved to, if you remember, Anderson Consulting, which is now Accenture. That was
Yep.
before they kind of had their dark moment. I got offered a job there, and going through all the interviews and all the things that you would do in these other roles, I'm back to that monthly routine,
Mhm.
and um, you hit this sort of hey, I was like
Ceiling.
30, right? I was under 30, and I was essentially CFO of a £50 million business, which is pretty rare. It felt like everything was way less exciting in my
Mhm,
next opportunity. except for, wow, I could go off and do this crazy FP&A stuff in the software space. And I really got the value of what it was trying to do, being a spreadsheet user, right? So it was a combination of greed, so back to that commission check, right? There's more upside here, and sort of aspiring to wanting to be at the front of the business and doing more different things every day than the same routine that I could see in finance. And even in a finance role where you are in the middle of everything, that's exciting. That's way more exciting than I'm just closing the books. But it's not as fun as just walking into a room full of 20 people and I don't know how this meeting is going to go, but I need to position my software. I need to understand what their requirements are. And today it's a retailer, tomorrow it's a manufacturer, next it could be an oil and gas company. That whole tap dancing is a keeps you alive, right? Keeps your brain going. And then the sort of, hey, I'm not in the office all day, right? I'm out on the street working in different environments. Obviously for me, I've lived in 4 different countries, explored the world. And so it has opened a lot of horizons. And that's exactly why I took the risk. It was a sneaky risk, I remember, Danesh, because I was kind of and accounting at Adaytum to start, right? So I remember setting up the books and I did the reports. I set up the payroll when we moved to the US. So if I'd have failed miserably in my sales career early on, I would always go back to the finance. Obviously, eventually it became no, somebody else can do that. I'll be out there, meeting customers and prospects, etc. Yeah.
All right. So was there a moment you can remember in your sales journey where it's like, all right, I think I got it. Like you had your one
that's a great story. So it's so easy, right? Sales is so easy, as everybody knows. So when I joined Adaytum, they were based in a small house in Bristol. And so I went to the top floor. Guy gave me the manual basically and said, right, learn that. And it was about this thick. So crunched through it in a couple of days. Went, okay, I now know how Adaytum works. Within 2 days. Not quite, but you know what I mean, right? I know enough to be really dangerous. And so an old friend of mine is Douglas. He booked me my first meeting. He says, right, Neil, we're going out on the road. And what, next week? Oh my God, already? I'm not ready. No, off you go. You're going to be at Sharwood's. And Sharwood's make spices. You remember those little bottles? We've probably got some in my kitchen over here. And I got in my car and off I drove. With a physical map, no GPS in those days. God knows how I ever found anywhere I was supposed to be, and walked in and met the CFO of Sharwood's in the UK. Opened up my extremely old laptop compared to the ones we have now, and basically, what do you need? Well, our revenue planning sucks. We hate using spreadsheets. It's too complicated. We need more versions. All the basic stuff that you kind of still hear today. Okay, let me show you how Adaytum works. So again, did a little bit of tapping, give me some products, time frame, all the dimensions that you need. Let's do a new version, volume times price, model around a bit of cost of sales. Over the course of about 45 minutes, we started to build the framework of the Sharwood's revenue model. And so he goes, this is fantastic. I said, actually, it is fantastic, isn't it? Because it's the first time I'd ever done demo, right? And we were, in those days, Neil is the sales guy, the demo guy, does everything, right? So you have to kind of walk and chew gum at the same time. So I'm, goofing around with my mouse. I'm showing them the product. They're looking over my shoulders because no projectors in those days either. So we couldn't afford them at Adaytum to start with. And they go, this is fantastic. I said, how much is it? So I'm racking my brain trying to remember what the pricing was that Douglas told me to say. And, it's about £20,000. And they said, that seems very reasonable. So like, yeah, it's great. We'll go away and think about it. I said, fine. We'll follow up with you, next week or whatever it is. This is how you would implement. This is how it works, etc. So great. Literally the next day they called Douglas because they had his number, they didn't have mine, and they sent over a fax order. So of course, a commission on £20,000. Back to my Nick story. It wasn't 229,000, unfortunately, because that would be a bit of a loss-making exercise. Even I can work that out. But it was like, wow, this is really addictive. Because a month later, I got a nice extra check as commission. And so I literally closed my first deal I ever demoed to. Now, I will tell you after that, it went a bit dry and I've had my ups and downs just like everyone has. But that drug of wow, I walked in that room knowing nothing, and I walked out with a customer that was very happy. I really stretched my brain, right? I used all of the communication skills that are as limited as you can imagine at that time. They're a little better now. And, got somebody to buy something that's going to provide value to them, and walk away with my commission check. This is awesome. So I'm going to keep doing this. And that's how I knew.
Mm.
And my selling style is always about the knowledge, right? It's about the knowledge of the product. So I can demo any product that I've ever sold, including the no-code one, which was ridiculous to learn. Whole new bunch of new acronyms, mobile development, goodness me. But I could build a mobile app on that. Obviously, I can use Anaplan. So I really, really like to know how the product works, because I am not the greatest salesperson in the world, but I can be very product knowledgeable. And I obviously in finance, which is a love of mine, I can be very process knowledgeable. So I may not have done the financial consolidations for the world's largest companies, but I consolidated for Johnson & Johnson Europe. I consolidated for my little startup, and we had four different entities. That was hard enough in a spreadsheet. So, that credibility of I know the product and I know the process, and I can really empathize with what you're asking me and show you how the product will solve that problem or not. I'm a very transparent person. So when you sell to me, tell me what's good, what's bad. And that's what I like to do with my customers as well, is, hey, these are all the great reasons. This is why you might be a bit nervous, or you better plan for it. So that strong credibility sell, where hopefully you get the trust and you are being truly genuine to what the product can do. That's worked in my career really, really well for me. And other people have different styles. And that's one thing I had to learn about when I became a sales leader. It's like, wow, Daanish does it differently, but can be just as effective with the style, as long as the framework of the selling is the same. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, quite fascinating.
I've been through all sorts of formal training, worked obviously for different leaders. And I think one of the secrets I learned when I became a sales leader was you need to give people the comfort of the style. So, of course, pricing is fixed. The way we present is fixed. The benefits of the company are fixed. But the way that I might articulate that to you, Mr. Customer, based on my experience, would be different to the next person. And the next person, who may not be as deep in finance as me, for example, that's okay. They don't have to be as finance clever as me, but they have their own way of delivering that message. As long as the framework is the same of what's a deal, what do we talk about, how do we price it, do we set the right expectations for the customer, then we can all have our own little bit of sales magic that we're really, really comfortable with. And again, that served me very well, despite all my training and could you say it differently and all those sorts of things. Yeah.
Now you're now this new excitement, newfound love with sales. You're jumping you went from Adaytum to Adaptive.
Yep.
Eventually
Yep.
Vena.
A little bit of Cognos in the middle after being acquired.
Cognos, Vena, and then eventually Anaplan. So can you talk a little bit about what it's like? Now you got this skill set. Now, how do you go from product to product to product?
Yeah. That's interesting, because they're all a little bit different. So I love Adaptive. Adaptive is the best budgeting for finance tool on the planet. Still is. It's not a great planning tool in my mind. Anaplan is a fantastic planning tool, not necessarily the easiest thing to use for your annual budget, because you have to create it, right? So there's all these differences in the tools. Fundamentally, there's an overlap. Some of them are solving the same problems in a slightly different way. Having said all that, it's never been hard for me to walk in, whether it was the Adaptive training, the Vena training, the Anaplan training. They have dimensions. I kind of know what they're supposed to be doing. They're supposed to be doing budgeting planning. They come at it a little bit differently. The menus are different. Anaplan is, I would say, obviously much more scalable, but really that just means the dimensions can be longer. Before you have to start breaking things up and compromising, which you may or may not do in other tools. It's way more flexible. So you need to think a little bit about design more than the others, where you're a little bit more boxed in, where you're a lot more boxed in. and what you're able to do. So the freedom is a huge blessing of Anaplan. It's one of the key value differentiators, but of course it's also, with great freedom comes great responsibility. So I've got to be responsible for building a really good application for my users, to be able to make it super adoptable. Whereas if it's out of the box and it looks like this, and it doesn't matter what you want to do, it looks like this, in many ways that can be easier than you can design it any way that you want. But ultimately, I'm a big spreadsheet jockey, still am today, and making the leap for me in tools from A and B columns and all those sorts of things. Formulas are very similar. I've never found it that difficult once you understand how to navigate through the applications themselves. Yeah, it's just never been that one's never been a problem. And I think it also comes back to the best salesperson for me is the person that knows the product. So the first thing I did at Anaplan, where I'm senior vice president of a team that does this, I'm going to go do the training. So I log into that training module and I start building up applications in Anaplan, within the first week, which nobody asked me to do, but I need to know how it works for me to be credible when I communicate, both within the team, to my peers in the company, as well as to my customers and prospects who are asking me about it. So, very, very hands-on-y with products is my style. And I like learning new things. So, it kind of combines really nicely for a good outcome.
If you imagine somebody new starting their career today in, let's take it, software sales, call it Anaplan sales, or EPM sales, what advice would you give them today for someone just starting out?
Yeah, it's a little different world today, but the same common traits for salespeople, I think, apply, which is, first most obvious one is, the harder you work, the better the results are, which is so obvious. But I've seen salespeople not follow that rule. And partly I'm doing really well. This will continue forever. No, this is not luck. It's hard work. There's always a little bit of luck, but no, it's fundamentally make the phone calls, meet the prospects, solve their problems for them, answer quickly, be very transparent, answer the question, don't deflect. All those fundamental things that I think are just as valid today. If I make 10 phone calls instead of one, I'm more likely to get a prospect on the phone. That kind of very basic rules, which we do seem to ignore. The second one, I think, is the personal touch. That one is, again, you have to find your own way. So I'm sure that some of the prospects to me go, oh my gosh, that guy, he's got a weird accent, don't like the style. You can't please everybody. Who you can please is kind of yourself. Are you really comfortable in your own skin and what you're trying to do? And I think a lot of salespeople, if they adopt that, if they have the right knowledge and the right energy and the work ethic, again, good things really start to happen, because you're much more genuine. And you're never pleased with all of your customers, and that's perfectly fine. But all you can do is do the best that you can for you. And again, answer the customer's questions, be on time, set up things correctly, bring the right people in. The best sales reps I've worked with are ones that really are quarterback sales reps. And this is obviously more in an enterprisey type of environment where I need 6 experts to come and help me deal with the IT folks who have their technical questions, and then procurement who have their pricing questions, etc. And the best sales reps are team players for sure, right? They may even know everything. And when I answer product questions, generally I know the answer, but sometimes I'll say I don't, and that gives me an excuse to follow up later, or it gives me an excuse to bring somebody else. So really knowing your domain and having the right energy and being a team player, I think those all apply to any salesperson. And then I think the the sort of methodology of it all, every company has a little bit of, are you MedPick? Are you something else? I like a structure, but if I'm a sales rep today, it's like, I'm definitely going to follow the structure. I'm going to absorb everything I can do, but I won't be afraid to experiment within that framework of if I try it saying it this way, does it resonate better for the customer? Or if I do it this way, does it, does the customer get more excited about what we're doing? And then feed that obviously back into the organization. Because if you do keep doing the same thing over and over again, your competitors get wise to that's the talk track. So we'll mitigate that by saying this thing. So you're always kind of reacting to what's happening in the market. And I think, sales reps, particularly who are always on, always working, always learning, always bringing in the experts to help them, those are the most effective sales reps, particularly in the enterprise world.
All right. So I think that gives a great insight into kind of sales, your journey. I want to pivot now a little bit. Now let's talk some Anaplan, right? So you recently started with Anaplan. You're tasked with heading up the finance and workforce applications. Where do we start?
Where do we start? So so I joined in December. It's a fun journey for sure, and I'm sure if you've done any research on Anaplan, you've seen this application message come out. When you get behind the scenes, as I've been able to do, wow, there is a lot of work going on that is just truly exciting, as I mentioned earlier, right? It's wow, this is really, really changing the company and how we go to market, how we do business, how we work with partners, how we work with our customers. Super, super exciting. I think what I really enjoy about my role here is half of it is still kind of selling, right? It's selling internally, it's selling to partners, it's selling to customers. So I get out in the big wide world still, not chained to my desk, and talk about this vision and this message, and work out what resonates, what doesn't. We work with design partners all the time around, we're thinking of this application, or here is the application. Can you help us make it even better for our next round, our next version 2 or version 3, etc. So I really, really enjoy all the dynamics of that. And what keeps me happy on the product side is watching, because I don't know too much configuring. They probably wouldn't let me configure too much, but is watching the dynamics of a team that started very small. So there were 9 people in my team when I started. We're about 30 something now. I've lost count. We have somebody new arrived last week. So the team's been really growing. Is watching the success, and obviously success is fun, but watching the team kind of slowly but surely get more and more comfortable as a team, more and more comfortable with the mission, and watching the rest of the company kind of go from, well, a year ago, I'm told, what's this application thing? Is it really going to work? Is this real? In finance, well, we don't know. And to now, it is part of our core, right? It's we feel like every customer should really think about using the applications, whether you're an existing customer looking to expand into a new division, whether you're an existing customer who wants to kind of take what you've done and refresh it because the business has moved since the 7 years ago you implemented, or whatever it might be, or you're a net new customer. So because watching the team build, a fairly small team, build something that is now really scaling out and being very well received. I get the chance to meet industry analysts, so people from Gartner and ISG, etc. And there is not a single person I've met, be they industry analysts, deep domain experts, customers having a first look at Anaplan, that what we're trying to do and are executing against doesn't resonate. And so the fun of the job is sort of this massive breadth. There's a lot of things to do, but the breadth is super exciting. And obviously being at the forefront of technology is always cool, right? So the AI stuff, watching that come to life is really, really super fun. And I use AI every day. So watching it in the real world come into Anaplan, start to extend Anaplan. We're just in the middle now of launching our AI model builder. So what does that mean? That means that you literally say, hey, I want to go build an application for a podcast company, do my revenue, my number of subscribers, go make money for me, Mr. Application. And Anaplan just comes to life in the background and starts building itself. And then you as the user add your contextual knowledge to that. So everything is going to change dramatically over the coming years. And I'm super excited because you may have noticed I've got a bit of gray hair. But so I'm obviously, nearer the end than nearer the beginning of my work life. But being part of this right now is super energizing, right? I do joke around, Dinesh, that by the time I finally give up or that I get kicked out, maybe the robots will have taken over, given the situation of AI. But right now, we're in the sweet spot of wow, look at all the potential, look at all the capabilities. Before Terminator arrives, basically. So yeah, it's great. It's great fun. It's great fun. Yeah.
All right. So if the end game is Terminator and where we are today,
Yes. Trust me, I don't
exciting.
think we're working on that in my team, but I can't speak for anybody else. Yes.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So obviously you're working on the applications, and one thing on the consulting side, at least when we're working on implementations, is customer wants this and that and this and that. So in an application, how are you kind of controlling the scope? Where it's like,
Yeah.
we should build this and this and this, but wait, maybe let's just build these things.
Yeah, that is a great conversation to have with a customer, because of course every customer is different. Every customer is like a little snowflake, right? Everybody's special. They have their own unique processes, their own unique ways of doing things. It's always been fascinating to me in my, what is it now, 40 years of doing this, 35, how different companies are when they plan. Even the nearest competitors in the world, right? So one of my favorite day trips a few years ago was I went to Los Angeles, and there were two retailers, and they were basically the same size, and they were direct competitors. And the first one was like true central command, top down. This is how we plan. CFO was very domineering. This is my philosophy. This is what I do. Nothing wrong with that. That's perfect. The one down the street, we're super bottom up. We look at every piece of detail. And you literally are almost the same company with retail stores, e-commerce website, sell clothes. Wow. That's how different you are. Just amazing. And probably if I'd have been very, very opinionated, I would have upset one of them, right? Because it would have been, I'm a detail guy. What the hell are you doing top down all the way and don't even listen to what the stores say? Versus you over here, wow, you're in the weeds. My God, you need some top-down guidance. You can spin that any way that you want. And the best way of doing things is somewhere in the middle, probably, right? It is in the middle somewhere, the right balance. So it's fascinating in planning, coming back to your question, which is, how do you start somebody with an application approach and then give them that freedom to go off and do what you want? And that's the beauty of what we're doing, which is, hey, we're not really building an application that you kind of have to squish into, and that's the way you have to do it. You could do it that way. That would be the quickest way of starting. But of course, you might say, well, we want to do a little bit more on our cash flow management or on our project planning. Then you start to take the application you configure. And our platform is absorbing all of that for you so that you, again, have all the best tools of Anaplan. Go build from scratch if you want to still. But I can take that framework that got me implemented this far and spend my time and energy on the next thing, and my time and energy on extending what I've done, but also then expanding into other areas of the business. Because that's the beauty of the Anaplan platform, of course, is, hey, it's not just for finance. It's a great financial tool, but are you in supply chain? Are you in workforce again? Are you go to market, sales operations? You're looking at your pipeline. And I'm now working with the senior vice president of sales operations for a software company who doesn't even think about debits and credits in the finance world. Well, we can help you in that particular role. So that vision really resonates, because when customers truly look at Anaplan, they do have that, I want the big picture, but getting there can be overwhelming if you started everything was, I'm going to build it myself. So I truly think we're beginning to balance I get the right framework, the right platform underneath, I get the right tools to use depending on the problem I'm trying to solve, and they all beautifully connect together. And then when I get to my AI assistant telling me, I'll help you go build something, or I'll check the integrity of what you've built, that just makes me way more productive. With my productive and save time, I can do obviously much more higher value tasks. And so I think that's common across all software. And I think Anaplan's breadth really allows us to differentiate on what this can be across your entire company. You don't need to have a tool for this and a tool for that and a tool for this. You can just use the Anaplan platform with the appropriate applications, all within the same UI, same engineering, same security, same data, et cetera, sitting underneath.
All right. And taking that into consideration now, what is the role of the Anaplan partner ecosystem? Where do they fit in? What's the collaboration?
Yeah. So we have a very robust partner network ranging from all of the biggest partners in the world. So our good friends at Deloitte, Accenture, KPMG, PwC, etc. And they come at this with their perspective. Let's put it that way. So it may or may not immediately line up to ours, but that's okay. And the reason would be they have a lot more domain expertise than we do. We're the software company. So we take what our customers ask us and we create these applications. What our partners are working with us on is, are those applications robust enough? Are they deep enough? Again, it shouldn't be 100% solve because, again, most customers are snowflakes. All of them are.
Mm-hmm.
So it's 70% of the way there. It's 60% of the way there. It's the right balance to get the time to value, to get us started, and then work on, again, where your unique value add is. So our partners all bring their own perspectives to that. They have their own methodologies. Some of them are more challenging than others to work with, which is perfectly fine. They all have their own agenda. But that works really well for us because we get that true expertise of Anaplan builders and consultants who work with real customers much more directly than perhaps obviously I do, for example. And they introduce me and have been great facilitators. As you move down from the bigger ones into the smaller partners, the smaller parts are way more nimble, right? They're just like, hey, we generally it's been, we really like what you are doing, Anaplan. And a logical extension of what we're doing is, can I, as a partner, build my own applications? And then on your framework, integrated with whatever you're doing or standalone, what can I do? And that is fast approaching. We're in the early stages right now of some initial, I'll call it beta of that. So my team now know how it all works underneath the covers. We build the applications. Now we are teaching our partners how to build applications so they can build their own things, their own value on top of our platform. And that's super exciting for partners. I don't think any real partner wants to be, I'm a billable hour partner anymore. That, the world has changed from that. It's more, how do I bring intellectual property value, high value services, and really move the company needle versus I'm just working 10 hours on this particular project. So that dynamic in the industry has changed, and it's obviously changed with us and our approach as well. And then the smaller partners as a general theme, whether they're regional, so they have the language advantage, they have the local statutory reporting advantages, etc. They know that, again, way more than I ever will. And our team, they can take all that expertise and apply it to the same framework. And they can obviously do it from an industry perspective. So most of our partners work in different industries and really focus and bring that expertise. And I know you yourself working hard on some particular verticals in media, and that's a value that you eventually will be able to take and productize and then provide that to anybody out there in the big wide world, including organizations that you may never meet, but they're your target audience in Thailand or whatever. I don't know why I said Thailand, but you know what I mean. Malaysia, in the Far East. You don't have the capacity to go over there and sell it to them. That's fine. They can just look at it on the website. They can put it in their Anaplan environment. They can play around with it and go, that's high value. And off they go, and everybody wins. So I think that's the next kind of big step for us on the application stage, is not just building our own, and we're going to be fairly horizontal. It's that verticalization now. Now we're ready for that next. So how do our partners really exploit their IP, leveraging our platform? It's going to be cool stuff, and it's happening right now.
Yes. Now, one thing, we particularly like to kind of centralize our North Star as, right, is the value of a happy customer, right? At the end of the day, that's what I think both of us care about, right?
That's what we all want. Yes.
That's what matters.
It's much easier when they're happy. Yes.
Right. So how do we measure that as we're kind of rolling out these cool applications and AI
Yep.
and everything? How do we keep that at the forefront?
Yeah, so obviously we have the traditional Anaplan framework of net promoter scores and that sort of thing. And so our customer success team and our business partners there, across all Anaplan customers, that's a sort of standard routine. For the extra layer of applications, that's where my team comes in. So we have a role that we call our delivery advisors. And those guys and girls, they work with customers who are implementing. So they are the oversight. It's a resource that we provide to say, hey, this is still, we talked about integrated financial planning fairly early. This is still fairly early on our journey. So we're going to learn a hell of a lot as we implement with you, Mr. Customer. And most of the customers we're implementing with are this weird and wonderful mix of like super large, $30 billion companies to I'm $100 million smaller retailer. Okay, fine. Doesn't matter. You get the delivery advisor role who keeps an eye on what things are happening with your implementation. So did we provision correctly? That's a fairly easy one. Yes, we did. Are you using the content that we provided, both you and the partner and our own professional services? Are you following the best practices that we all agreed for implementing these applications, which is implement fast, gap analysis, build value, spend your time building value. Don't whiteboard everything from the start. And we're watching those, and we're obviously watching time, because part of the value of an application is you're going to be in there quickly with your users to do that gap analysis. Your users can look at the screens within a few days and go, I don't like that. Can you move that over there? Can you change that? Versus waiting for a period of time for those screens to be designed. Much, much easier to see it and change it versus design it from scratch. So we have those methodologies, a whole bunch of metrics that we follow, and we are the sort of point of escalation if something goes slightly awry, and our radar is up, right? It's super up. So we're very, very sensitive to, is this going as well as we think it should be? And I'll get on the phone and ask the customer, you're good, right? We're good here. Mm-hmm. Because, this is a very, very important mission for us. So particularly, again, in these earlier days, the customers are getting lots and lots of extra support. And I think what they're also appreciating is they're getting the ability to come back to us and say, can you do this? Can you change this? We've learned this. So they truly are partnering with us and collaborating on the journey. And that's nice to see, right? A happy customer wouldn't do that. So our customers are not only somewhat at the early stage of adopting something, they are, and that brings an innovative customer. They kind of have a bit of a higher pain threshold. They're used to a few bumps in the project. They know what they're doing is complicated. Those are the best customers for us to work with, where, hey, we will try to follow the methodology and we will come back to you and iterative improvements, so that when version 2, version 3 arrives, they get the extra value, and that's why they deployed the application in the first place. So yeah, whole bunch of normal Anaplan resources, and then extra layer from me and the team here, keeping an eye on things as closely as possible.
Yeah, it's great to see that customers are so invested, right? Because they're giving feedback, you're taking it in, you're iterating, you're updating. The worst thing is if they would be quiet and silent, then you're not getting feedback. But it sounds like they're very invested.
They are. And one of the fun things that's happened, which I guess it makes sense now, but maybe didn't expect 6 months ago, is a customer that's deployed integrated financial planning. They've seen it, they've touched it, they had a good experience. They're now off doing their value add exercise. And then we call them up and we say, hey, we're going to work on a new application, one of the next ones. And it's a little bit more in the revenue area. One we're not thinking about, we're going to deliver. It's called, we keep changing the name, but it's consensus margin planning. So it's basically for companies that sell things. So volume times price, whole bunch of complexity behind that. And one of our design partners, actually 2 of them so far, we've got the first application. We know exactly what you're trying to do. We really appreciate the value that we got. Now we're ready to help you design the next one. And of course, there's a little bit of, quid pro quo, which is, hey, you help us design this one that we can take to the market with your seal of approval. Then, because there'll be a reference and all those other things, and they'll do some marketing with us, you just snap that into IFP and everybody is happy. So I think the best, this is working kind of Data point is when customers say, can I come and help you build the next one proactively? And I want one for my business. Now, obviously I have limited capacity. So it's like, I can't really do that one right now. I might be able to do this one, or I have to go ask the boss for a few more resources. But that data point that is resonating, and we're getting pulled. There's not a push, if you know what I mean, right? So it's, can you do another one? Can you do what more? What's coming next? We're hearing a lot of that, which is super exciting.
Well, sounds like that customer might want a commission check from you.
We've had a little bit of that, so shake hands. We'll do our best. Put it that way. But yeah, we obviously appreciate a customer's time and effort and energy, and certainly some of them are obviously helping with testing and making sure it does what it says it will, and that's worth something to us for sure from an Anaplan perspective. So yeah, it might be a nice Christmas hamper as a minimum. How's that?
Wonderful.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Neil, as we look to kind of wrap up here, it's been a great conversation. We've kind of touched on your personal career journey, talked a little about sales. We've dived deep into kind of where Anaplan's at, where it's going. Put a little bow on this. What are you excited about? Things you're looking forward to, and what's ahead?
Yeah. So I think, and we alluded to it throughout a little bit, is, I come from a world where you built something from scratch. And now, literally again, this meeting earlier today, I just go tell my machine and it builds it for me, which is, wow, this is mind-blowing stuff, right? This is so cool. So I like two things that I'm most excited about. One is that, how is that really going to make me as a customer develop better applications? Not just my core ones to get you started, but as an end customer taking one and saying, hey, I've got the integrated financial planning app and I'm a retailer. Go off and tell me, what do I need to extend this out? Ingest my data from my data warehouse and go create the model for me. And then keep it up to date, right? Just keep it up to date. Tell me if it's sufficient, etc. Watching that is just super exciting. The one that I really like, though, when I think about AI, and I think about this very long journey that I've had from a planning perspective, right? So when I went off to Sharwood's and sold my first deal, I was like, this is easy. Everybody's going to use an application to do this. Well, here we are 30, 40 years later. Nope. People still in Excel. Excel is a fantastic tool. I'm not diminishing Excel in any shape or form. But for collaborative planning and modeling, it is not. You should be using a proper application like Anaplan. What are the barriers to entry? And these are the things, again, that surprised me over my career. There's resistance. There's finance resistance, which I never understand, because if I'm a finance person, back to my monthly routine, I want to be playing with the latest tools. Planning's the fun part of
job
finance.
security. It's job security.
Well, I've hit some of that along my journey of, look, it's my spreadsheet. And I've got lots of fun stories about how when people ask you to build a POC and you build it and you go, your number's wrong, the customer goes, no, it's not. And you go, yes, it is, because I found a spreadsheet. And no, that sort of institutionalized, we all know, 94% of spreadsheets have errors, some crazy stat, right? When you prove it, everybody gets offended. Like, come on, everybody knows there's an error in here. So those ones are fun. But there is that resistance. There still is that resistance to day-to-day usage. And companies of all sizes still rely on Excel probably far too heavily. Well, definitely too heavily. But what are the barriers? So the AI thing is a chance now to finally break through that, not just for finance, because you're going to be forced to, right? The whole go sit in a corner and build an Excel model, those days they're ending really, really fast. Then it's my users. And this is something that I've also always been fascinated by. So I have my resistance from finance, and some of it's, budget and time. It's not just an attitude thing. Then, and executive sponsorship is a big one, right? We're going to change the way we do things, and I'm going to help you do this as the leader of the company. Then there's the users. And when I think about AI and users, just help me use this thing. And I didn't really appreciate this being a finance person. I can still build an Excel VLOOKUP and all that kind of stuff on the fly. A business user, they don't live in Excel. So it is pretty alien for them to do the monthly forecast or, for goodness sake, update Salesforce for me and all those sorts of things. That's all going away. AI will do that for you. So I do think AI watching your users, and the way I say it is, Dinesh, you're the optimistic one. So when you're interacting with your forecast and plan, you're always over promising, or you say you're going to spend $10 on your train trip and you spend 12 because you went first class, all that kind of stuff. And then Neil, you're the grumpy, pessimist type. So you're always, under promise, over deliver, right? When Neil says the forecast is $1 million, he really means it's 1.2. He's just keeping saying that stuff and help me navigate through, interpret the data, which where generative comes in. But then as I'm interacting, go, Neil, you're always pessimistic. My little AI annoying thing comes up and says, I'm either going to change that for you in my shadow AI driven version, because I now know who you are and your level of accuracy. But I'm going to guide you. I'm going to help you. Are you sure you want to put that number in? Not just from a navigation, but also an advisory standpoint. That stuff has been on my list to do since I was early days at Adaptive. So that's, oh my gosh, that's 15 years ago, where, guys, why can't we do that? Because then the users, they start to get gamified on accuracy, frequency of updating. AI can solve all of that problem for business and truly make planning for the users. It's not just this, I need to do the plan to give it to the CFO to add up, and he gives it to the CEO and they go, that's not enough, go sell more software. It's truly adding value to the users, right? Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? What does that mean? And it comes back and tells you. And our users get much more literate about numbers and finance, and feel like it's a true value add exercise because it's dynamic, it's up to date, it's not month to month. That is the one thing I think, if we can get to that, that would be super to see. Before I dive old age, whatever it might be. That one I think is really, really cool. It's a true value add exercise for everybody. Maybe not, budgeting for finance anymore, those sorts of things.
All right. Now, if we hit the home run, the last question here. If we hit this home run, where's Neil's next vacation?
My next vacation. Well, I'm actually working on that. Now, unfortunately, Anaplan messed up my vacation this summer. So I'm sort of navigating around what possible time will I get off. Next year, though, it's a bit of a milestone in the Neil Thomas household. So I've got to take a vacation. So I did live in Australia for a while, and one thing I messed up on is I should have gone and dive with a great white shark. So I didn't do that. Don't ask me why I didn't do that. And so next year, I'm going to go in the cage, and I'm going to go down, and I'm going to go do that, see if I get eaten or something. So I love diving, and I've seen plenty of sharks, but not big ones like that. So that's my mission. Then it's kind of, where do you go, right? So you can do it off California, but it's a little cold in the water. Obviously, South Africa. And there's some other fun things to do. Obviously, Africa's an amazing place. So I'm sort of thinking about that for next year, getting the right balance of crazy adventure and a little bit of R&R time. If I end up in Adelaide, I'll do it off of there, or Perth. You can do it there as well. So yes. So in a year from now, give or take, if we do this again, I will be hopefully on the back end of a boat, just getting into a cage, going, well, I'll see you soon. So that's my my ambition for next year, from a vacation perspective. And I'm going to do it. There's no question I'm going to do it. I've got to save up some dollars and stuff, but yeah, I've got to do it.
Wonderful. Well, thanks, Neil, for sharing your journey with us, sharing a little bit about Anaplan. For the audience, if anyone wants to connect with you, where can they find you?
Well, probably LinkedIn is the best place. I am not I don't have a TikTok account or anything like that. So yes, you can find me on LinkedIn. You can ping me at neil.thomas@anaplan.com anytime you like. I'm always happy to answer questions. And love to connect with anybody who was interested in what we talked about. No problem.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks for coming on the show, Neil, and we'll have to do this again.
Yeah, thanks, Dinesh. Delighted. I really, really appreciate the invite. And it was great to spend time with you. Thanks so much.